right now on WESH 2. It's time for Central Florida to cast our votes in the 2022 general election. But there's a lot more than names on this year's ballot.
This is something that can totally improve the overall quality of life for the majority of people in our community.
Better transportation options in exchange for your vote on a penny increase in the sales tax.
This transportation dedicated funding is mostly aimed, in your view, at making sure that they can write the check and pay the bill every month for Sunray.
Correct.
And an ordinance to cap those rent increases, pushing so many neighbors' budgets to the brink.
I know I could not handle another $300 increase on my rent.
It's all on the ballot in our Commitment 2022 election special. Here's WESH 2's Michelle Imperato.
It's almost Election Day, and there's a lot on the ballot this November that has nothing to do with the candidates running for office. In Orange County, you're voting on issues like how much tax you pay on purchases, how you get around our community, and how much your rent might go up. Even though they're Orange County issues, the outcomes will impact all Central Floridians. That's why tonight we're going in depth on 2 ballot initiatives to help you make the best decision come Election Day. First up is the transportation system surtax. You've probably heard this called the penny sales tax. We've been reporting on this for months, and the pitch is to increase Orange County's sales tax by 1% to help pay for an overhaul of the regional transit system. More Lynx buses with more stops and shorter routes. Sunrail trains running later at night and on the weekend. Better and safer ways to walk the streets in Orange County or ride your bike. It is a $600 million proposition that Orange County Mayor Jerry Demings is backing. He wants this tax to pass. He says to bring a transportation transformation to the area. The county's data shows the sales tax increase from 6.5 to 7.5% will cost the average family an extra $300 a year. Proponents say that cost will be offset with a variety of savings, from cash to time. And the business community is largely supporting it too, citing it as a way to modernize Central Florida. But opponents say there is no way our community can afford a tax increase. So we're breaking down the arguments against the tax, as well as what it will do if it's passed. And that's where we start. WESH 2 transportation reporter Megan Mackey looks at how the tax increase could change Central Florida's public transit infrastructure.
I had a car, but I gave it up because it was just too expensive to keep it going. But I love driving. It's just that I can't afford it, you know. So this is really the best alternative.
Jill McIntosh lives off Curry Ford Road and commutes about an hour and a half each way every day on Lynx just to get to her job. That's more than double the amount of time it would take if she drove a car.
And on some of the bus routes, it's kind of like every half hour, and maybe the connection isn't very good.
I rode with McIntosh on Line 8, running between the Orlando Premium Outlets and Lynx Central Station along the iDrive corridor. No matter what time of day, Lynx says this route is their busiest.
This bus is full a lot of the time, and it's amazing how full it can be in only a 15-minute intervals, you know, that every bus can be very, especially at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I mean, the other day I got on this bus after 6 o'clock and it was packed.
Under the penny tax proposal, Lynx says the first thing voters would see is more buses, increased frequency, and added routes. So someone like Jill has a shorter, more direct trip from home to work and vice versa.
Right now we're sort of focused on getting everyone downtown and then putting everyone back out into the system. But really what we want to do is like spread that out and make it so that not everyone has to come downtown and they can go throughout our service area without having to come downtown.
Lynx would do that by creating transit centers around the county. That would help riders make quicker connections, avoiding downtown. The new funding will bring other capital improvements, more shelters at bus stops, dedicated bus lanes, but most notably more buses. The county wants to more than double the fleet size.
Important things for me is important to rent, you know.
Charles Ermer relies on Lynx as his sole mode of transportation. He was injured in a car accident 10 years ago and lost part of his leg.
A lot of the newer buses have no problems with the ramps, but some of the older buses, we have a problem with the ramps opening and closing by themselves electronically.
Most of the riders I spoke with say the increased frequency of buses, cutting down on trip time, is what they want most and why they want the tax plan approved.
We all want to be comfortable. We all need to get to work. We all need to, feed our families and pay bills. So it's like, don't do it just for you, because one day you might not have a car and you might have to get on the bus, and you're going to find out how time consuming being on the bus is.
I think all voters should vote for this because it's public transportation, and Lynx actually needs to help. I mean, where else is the money going to go? We need something here for the community and stuff like that for people like myself and everybody else that depends on the bus,
If it's going to benefit the majority of people that, use it to commute every day, I mean, it's worth it. Definitely worth it.
The 1% sales tax is set to generate $600 million a year and will be split into 3 categories. Lynx and Sunrail are one category, getting 45% or roughly $270 million. In Ford's money, Sunrail, which currently operates Monday through Friday, will start running a lot more.
Meaning that not only would you have more frequent service during the day, but also providing service during the weekends and holidays.
Adding nights and weekends is expected to increase Sunrail ridership. So with a connection to Orlando International Airport. That would mean building new tracks and coordinating with Brightline, the private rail service about to start operating at OIA. With the new cash infusion, Sunrail would expand to Northwest Orange County via the Orange Blossom Express. Places like Rosemont, Apopka, and Zellwood would now have Sunrail stops.
For a lot of people in Orange County, getting off that train or bus is really just the start of their journey. I'm Marlene Martinez.
How long were you in a wheelchair?
And that journey can be a harrowing one. For folks who step off the bus in Pine Hills, this is a decision they face every day. Where and when to dodge traffic with crosswalks in short supply. The Orlando area is one of the most dangerous places in the country for pedestrians, according to Smart Growth America. So out of the $600 million that the penny sales tax is expected to generate, the county says about 22% of that will go towards safety improvements, including for pedestrians and bicyclists. Pine Hills is one area the county plans to work on.
They need to improve it. We need safe crossing.
Wider sidewalks, new sidewalks.
We checked in with Brian Sanders, the assistant manager of the county's Transportation Planning Division, about specific improvements pedestrians could see.
Enhanced crosswalks, newly freshly painted crosswalks, equipment at intersections to facilitate pedestrian crossings and detection.
All enhancements that Ronnie Wood would love to see.
This is the spot that literally changed my life.
This was Ronnie 4 years ago after a driver hit her while she was in a crosswalk with her son along Curry Ford and Conway Roads.
I could not move. I was instantly in pain, the worst pain of my life.
She shows us her scar after it took a plate, screws, and a good year to walk normally again. Now, for the first time since the crash, Ronnie is crossing this stretch again.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
After improvements were made, she'd like to see more throughout the county.
The blinking lights at crosswalks, better paint painted on the roadway. I could see more education.
Now, Ronnie turned the accident into her purpose as an advocate for the Best Foot Forward Safety Initiative.
So people are more aware and alert when they're behind the wheel.
That's what folks who are on wheels want too. We went for a ride along with Beth Resta with the Orlando Bike Coalition. We cruised along Corinne Drive, a highly trafficked road, this stretch without a bike lane.
How are you feeling right now?
It's a little nerve-wracking. These cars are going really fast. I would love to see more dedicated bike lanes, protected bike lanes.
That's something the county is planning.
New on-street bicycle lanes. We could be adding multi-purpose paths. That's off-road bicycle facilities that are shared between bicycles and pedestrians.
Beth says bike and pedestrian safety goes hand in hand.
I would love to see more safety measures like this, and I would love to see the full Corinne project come to life.
She hopes this new crosswalk will lead to more bike lanes if the penny sales tax is approved.
This is investing in our roadways. This is investing in making sure that we have the funding to build the bike and pedestrian infrastructure that we need to be a world-class city.
Brian Sanders points to the dashboard.
It illustrates all the projects that are proposed by the sales tax.
That shows projects the county has already zeroed in on based on need, deficiencies, and crash statistics. Shanice Carr hopes the county takes a holistic approach to improving safety after her 9-year-old daughter, Ariana, was killed while crossing the street 7 years ago.
It honestly ripped my family to pieces.
What do you think would truly improve pedestrian safety in Orange County?
More education, more sense of community. At the end of the day, dollars can be spent on flashing lights. If somebody is rushing to go somewhere and they run a red light, they run a red light. It has to change with that person within their mindset. We have to start seeing each other in communities as a community to have respect for one another. If we don't talk about it, if we don't raise awareness about it, then that mindset of the community is not going to change.
Not everyone is on board with how to pay for transit changes.
I think that it is just silly to raise taxes during a recession. High gas prices, rising rents, rising interest rates, and this 1% tax, it's a penny too many.
Who's against the transportation sales tax? And more of their reasons why, when On the Ballot continues.
Welcome back. We just told you what the Orange County transportation sales tax could do if it's passed. A better bus system, more Sunrail, safer options for bikers and walkers. The proposal needs 50% plus 1 to be approved. But opponents say you should axe the tax. WESH 2 political reporter Greg Fox found out why they're organizing against it.
People don't make enough money.
They haven't shown themselves responsible so far, so why should we give them any more money?
I don't trust it. I don't trust it, and I'm not, I wouldn't be for it, no.
It's not the first time Orange County voters have had their say on a tax increase to support public transit changes. In 2003, voters shot down a proposal called Mobility 2020. And now, almost 20 years later, a new version of the Axe the Tax group that successfully fought that half-penny transportation tax in 2003 is once again urging a no vote.
High gas prices, rising rents, rising interest rates, and this 1% tax, it's a penny too many.
And you're hurting them. They're already hurting, and then you're going to add insult to injury.
We just need to be honest, and I'm not quite sure that I was convinced that that plan was truly honest.
Victoria Siplin is one of the 3 Orange County commissioners who voted against the penny tax when it came up for a vote to go on the ballot back in April. She suspects that it was primarily promoted by Mayor Jerry Demings to provide a steady stream of funding for Sunrail.
You have a Sunrail that is getting ready to lose funding, and a dedicated source of funding is needed for Sunrail for its survival. And I think that's the main reason I believe that this transportation tax, is being put forth. It's really to save Sunrail.
In less than 2 years, the state is expected to turn over operation of the rail system to Orange and other local governments. That means they'll run the commuter trains that currently operate at roughly a $41 million annual deficit. According to a spokeswoman for Mayor Demings, yes, the tax is intended to cover Orange County's portion of the Sunrail costs, both in operating and capital expenses. Others who question the need for a transportation tax point to explosive construction of homes in communities like Horizon West, south of Winter Garden. Builders of each new single-family home pay between $6,400 and nearly $15,000 in transportation impact fees. And all those apartments going up? Developers pay between $1,500 and more than $8,000 per unit in transportation impact fees. Some critics believe that developers who pay those vital impact fees
will use the passage of the transportation tax to then go back to the county and say, look, you've got all this new money coming in. Let's see a reduction in the amount of transportation impact fees that we pay.
The purpose of impact fees is to make sure that new development pays for their impacts on existing residents' lives, right? Their lives. And that means their sidewalks, their roads.
Commissioner Nicole Wilson is another of the 3 on the county board who voted against the transportation tax plan.
My concern is that we were supplanting that obligation developers had.
Again, the mayor's spokeswoman tells us the county must consider other revenue sources that fund the same improvements as part of its impact fee calculations. This would be required under Florida law to ensure that new growth doesn't pay twice for the same infrastructure. Not only does Wilson believe developers should not get any breaks.
If you don't have a car, is Orange County a place for you?
She believes too little of the money will be spent on mass transit, especially adding east-west routes for Lynx buses and a true east-west line for Sunrail commuters who want to get from the Lake County line to UCF and beyond. She also believes bike and pedestrian safety improvements will be dwarfed by more road pavement for cars.
The lack of commitment to east-west connection, the lack of commitment to mass transit, real effective mass transit, and the lack of commitment to bike and pedestrian safety prevented me from ultimately supporting it.
Ultimately, voters will decide if paying an extra penny on the dollar makes sense to fill their transportation needs.
A tax increase isn't the only budget issue on the ballot.
It would be really nice not to have to worry, every pay period about my rent.
Orange County voters are being asked to help stabilize rent increases. Who's backing it? And who's leading the campaign against capping the rent? Next.
Welcome back to On the Ballot, our WESH 2 Commitment 2022 special about the initiatives on this November's Orange County ballot. The cost of a home is becoming more of a burden on all of us, whether you own or rent. In Orange County, voters are being asked to decide if renters should get a break. It would come in the form of a cap on how much your monthly housing costs can increase. The rent stabilization ordinance would limit how much rent can go up next year if you live in certain types of multifamily buildings. Opponents tell me the ordinance won't solve the housing shortage, and they believe the ordinance might be against the law. But supporters say it is the only way to deal with the housing crisis facing tens of thousands of low-wage workers in Central Florida.
Things are really tight right now. I won't lie, it's a bit stressful.
Sarah Santora's rent is going up $150 a month, stretching her budget to the limit. Soon, she'll be paying roughly $1,900 for a one-bed, one-bath. And Sarah could be considered lucky. $150 is on the lower end of rent increases. I spoke with several people who said their rent skyrocketed, jumping $500, $600, even $1,000 a month. They feel trapped or forced to leave a place they call home.
Some people moved in with other families, so we have multiple families living together, sleeping on the floor. That's what they've had to do in order to get by.
Orange County Commissioner Emily Bonilla says the situation is dire. That's why she sponsored the rent stabilization ordinance on the ballot this November. If approved, she says it will give some renters a break. Renters who can't keep paying more.
I know I could not handle another $300 increase on my rent.
Here's what the measure proposes. For 1 year, 2023, landlords would not be able to raise rent higher than the rate of inflation. It only applies to certain types of rentals, buildings with 4 or more units. Landlords who feel they just can't afford to keep the rent down can apply for an exemption. But if landlords don't comply with the law, they could face fines, even jail time.
Your main needs are shelter, food, your health care, and so I'm trying to at least take care of the shelter part.
Before the ordinance ended up on the ballot, it went before the Orange County Commission. District 2 Commissioner Christine Moore voted against it then, in part because she says it won't help everyone.
I think the real solution is increasing the supply. And so I think county government, we have to work with the development community to have responsible development in the right places. And the ordinance itself really to me is false hope because it's only a small subset of the total rental market.
The ordinance has other opponents. Florida Realtors Association and the Florida Apartment Association sued to block it from being on the ballot. A judge denied that injunction, but wrote in his ruling the ordinance might not be legal. The reason? Florida law prohibits rent caps without certain thresholds being met. The Realtors and Apartment Association are appealing the decision. Both declined my request for an interview, but in statements told me they're disappointed and plan to keep fighting the measure. The Realtors are doing that in court and through their political action committee. You've probably gotten one of these mailers, or
rent control is on the ballot. Politicians call it rent stabilization.
Seen this commercial against the rent cap from the Apartment Association's political action committee. People on both sides of this debate agree on two things. A lack of housing at all price points is a big part of this problem, and a rent cap is not a long-term solution. But supporters of the ordinance say it's worth approving to help people right now.
There's no other scenario where you would know that it was complex, caused by lots of factors, and refuse to do one thing because it didn't fix everything.
Sheena Roll works for Florida Rising, an organization advocating for rent control. She says the county absolutely needs to find sustainable solutions, but insists if the county doesn't act now, there could be considerable consequences.
You can't go to your job at the theme parks, at the restaurants, and just say, I need you to work out $300 more of income for me. And there's so many hours in the day, and when you hit that max, working 2-3 jobs, people are getting squeezed out of not just comfort, but out of housing.
Roll says Orange County employers could lose their workforce if people can't afford to live here. But landlords say if the county caps rent, it could lose developers.
They're not going to continue to develop more rentals, creating a bigger shortage and increasing the rent amounts further, which is the exact opposite of what they're trying to achieve.
Rick Cian says he takes no joy in raising rent, but his expenses have gone up too. Taxes, insurance, even the cost to maintain his properties. Cian, like many landlords I spoke with, was under the impression this ordinance would impact him and his duplexes. It won't. Still, he thinks it's the wrong move.
I think a better solution would be to incentivize developers and builders to build more affordable housing by reducing impact fees and giving incentives to them to actually come into the area, into the marketplace.
Commissioners Bonilla and Moore both tell me the county is exploring all options to solve the rent and housing crisis on a larger scale for the long term. But right now, it's up to voters to decide in the short term what happens to rent next year. The lawsuit against this ordinance is still moving forward. If the courts rule against the ordinance, even if voters approve it, the rent stabilization would not become law. So this issue might not truly be settled until after Election Day. Orange County isn't the only one struggling with how to deal with housing costs. Brevard County voters are being asked to fund an affordable housing trust fund dedicated to creating more rental and home options. We have much more on that proposal, as well as the rent stabilization ordinance and the transportation tax proposal on WESH.com. Early voting runs until November 5th and 6th, depending on the county you live in. So make sure that you have your say on these ballot initiatives now or on Election Day, November 8th. For the entire Commitment 2022 team, thanks for watching.